Before you see the garden, you see the wall. It rises from damp earth in a long line of pale stone, interrupted only by a heavy wooden gate. Beyond it, somewhere in the gathering evening, a bell has just sounded. The road behind you is beginning to empty. A cart has passed not long ago, leaving 2 dark tracks in the mud. The last light rests on the fields, and the air carries the smell of wet soil, wood smoke, and animals being brought under shelter for the night. But on the other side of this wall, another landscape is waiting. What lies beyond the wall is practical rather than mysterious. Behind these walls, people are trying to solve a practical problem. When someone becomes sick, how do you care for them? The answer requires more than a handful of herbs. It requires land, water, food, storage, books, labor, routine, and somewhere quiet enough for an exhausted body to rest. Tonight, we will follow that system. We will enter a medieval monastery as evening falls, walk into a carefully tended garden, follow useful plants from the soil to storage and preparation, and finally reach the infirmary where medieval ideas about health became acts of everyday care. The wooden gate opens, you step through, and the road disappears behind you. There are places for prayer, eating, sleeping, storage, work, hospitality, and care. Water has to reach the places that need it. Food must survive beyond the harvest. Clothing has to be washed. Fuel has to be stored. Guests have to be received. And sick members of the community need somewhere to go. A medieval monastery is a religious institution, but religious life still depends upon human bodies. Bodies become tired. They grow cold. They are injured. They develop fevers. They age. The rule of Saint Benedict, written centuries before the night we are imagining, treated care of the sick as a serious obligation of communal life. By the Central Middle Ages, larger monasteries could provide dedicated infirmary spaces, sometimes with their own kitchens, dining arrangements, latrines, chambers, and access to clean water. The scale varied enormously. There was no single medieval monastery copied perfectly across Europe. A wealthy abbey and a small religious house did not possess the same resources. But the principle is easy to recognize. Within a community built around routine, sickness required another routine. Walk farther now, past the cloister, past a stone passage, toward a smaller enclosure where the evening air begins to smell different. Here, the earth has been divided into beds. It is tempting to imagine this as something more specialized than it really was. But the space belongs to a broader medieval world, in which food, healing, fragrance, household use, and cultivation often overlap. A medieval garden did not always divide food, medicine, fragrance, household use, and religious meaning into the neat categories we might expect today. One plant could belong to several worlds at once. Fennel could appear in food and in medical preparations. Sage appears repeatedly in medieval medicinal traditions. Rue was cultivated and described for a range of uses. Other useful plants might be gathered outside the monastery rather than cultivated inside it. And no responsible reconstruction should imagine that every monastery grew exactly the same collection. Gardens are difficult historical evidence. Beds are dug over, seeds travel, wooden borders decay, written records survive unevenly. Yet several remarkable sources allow us to glimpse how medieval people thought about organized cultivation. The famous plan of St. Gall, drawn around the early 9th century, depicts an ideal monastery rather than a photograph of one that existed exactly as shown. That distinction matters. But the plan places a medicinal garden close to the infirmary and marks individual planting beds. It preserves an important idea. Plants associated with bodily care could occupy an organized place within an organized religious community. Other sources give different glimpses. Lists of cultivated plants. Poetry about the labor and pleasure of gardening. Herbals and medical texts. recipes describing ingredients and preparation. None gives us a perfect picture. Together they reveal a world in which plant materials formed an important part of therapeutic practice. You crouch beside one of the beds. The soil is cool now. The warmth of the day is leaving it. Leaves brush softly against one another as the evening air passes through the enclosure. There is nothing magical about the sound. That may be the most interesting thing about it. This is work. A useful plant does not become useful simply because someone knows its name. It has to survive. The soil must be prepared. Weeds must be removed. Water must reach the bed. The correct plant has to be recognized. It has to be gathered at some point, carried somewhere. And, if it will not be used immediately, preserved. The romantic image of a solitary medieval herbalist can hide this ordinary truth. Care begins with logistics. A monastery could offer something especially valuable across generations: continuity. The same ground might be cultivated year after year. Tools could remain in use. Knowledge could be copied into books. A younger member of the community could learn from someone older. Ingredients could be stored, and materials unavailable locally might arrive through trade. This last point is important. Medieval medicine was never simply a story of herbs growing behind monastery walls. Therapeutic preparations could include animal products, minerals, resins, spices, oils, wines, and imported substances alongside locally cultivated plants. The garden was one part of a much larger material network. For now, remain beside it. A hand reaches down. A stem is inspected. A few leaves are gathered. There is no ceremony. A basket slowly fills. Then the plants leave the garden. Indoors, the atmosphere changes. The green smell of living plants gives way to something drier. Bundles may hang where air can move around them. Containers rest on shelves. A wooden work surface carries the marks of repeated use. There may be ceramic vessels, cloth, knives, spoons, bowls, mortars, and other ordinary implements, depending on place, date, and task. But this room should not be imagined as a standardized specialist workspace of a later age. Medieval therapeutic practice was varied. So were the places where ingredients were handled. The important transformation is simpler. Something seasonal is being made available for another day. Leaves can be dried. Ingredients can be crushed. Some materials can be infused, mixed, cooked, strained, or combined with other substances. Written medical recipes survive in large numbers, but a written instruction does not show every movement of the hands that followed it. A page can tell us that ingredients were combined. It cannot always tell us precisely how a particular person judged texture, smell, heat, or consistency. Practical knowledge lived beside written knowledge. Listen for a moment. A pestle moves against a mortar. Slowly. Dry material breaks beneath it. The sound is small enough that the stone room seems to grow larger around it. Outside, the garden has darkened. Inside, the day's material is becoming part of the monastery's stores. To understand what happens next, we have to leave our own medical assumptions at the door. Their explanations of illness are built from a different intellectual framework. Illness is not meaningless to them. Learn medieval medicine, inherited and transformed traditions, reaching back into antiquity, and especially from the 12th century onward, encountered a growing body of medical learning transmitted through Greek, Arabic, and Hebrew traditions into Latin. One of the most influential frameworks was humoral medicine. Blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, health could be understood through the balance and qualities of the body. Foods, seasons, age, sleep, exercise, environment, evacuation, emotion, and treatment could all matter within this system. Substances might be described as hot or cold, moist or dry. Diet could be adjusted. Rest could be prescribed. Preparations could be selected according to the logic available to the practitioner. Bloodletting also formed part of medieval monastic health practice and could be understood within ideas of bodily balance. To modern medicine, this explanatory system is obsolete. Some treatments were ineffective. Some could be dangerous. But historical understanding asks a different question, not whether their medicine was secretly modern. It was not. The question is how their decisions made sense inside the intellectual world they inhabited. And so we leave the preparation area, carrying with us the faint smell of crushed leaves, and walk toward the infirmary. The room is warmer than the corridor, not warm by modern standards, but protected. A bed stands away from the busiest parts of communal life. There is water nearby, cloth, a vessel. Perhaps food prepared differently from the ordinary communal meal. In larger monastic complexes, infirmaries could become surprisingly elaborate. Historical and archaeological evidence records dedicated kitchens, dining spaces, private chambers, latrines, chapels, and other facilities associated with sick, elderly, injured, or recovering members of religious communities. Clean water mattered, so did food. So did rest. And this is where the garden finally becomes human, not as a list of Latin plant names, not as a beautiful geometric pattern, but as one component in a system organized around a person who is unwell. Someone brings water. Someone prepares food. Someone launders cloth. Someone keeps a lamp burning. Someone watches. A preparation may be offered according to the medical knowledge of the period. Diet may change. The ordinary routine may be relaxed, and the person lying here does what sick people have done in every century: waits. Outside, evening has become night. The most revealing part of medieval monastic medicine may not be the remedy at all. It may be everything surrounding it: warmth, rest, food, clean cloth, water, a quieter room. Time away from ordinary duties. Medieval infirmary care could combine these basic forms of nursing with learned medical practices such as humoral regulation, examination, diet, bloodletting, and medicinal preparations. The proportions varied, the resources varied, the knowledge available in one community might differ from another, but illness was being managed through an environment as well as through ingredients. Imagine how significant that environment could feel. Outside these walls, winter might make travel difficult. Food supplies might be uncertain. A household might have little space to isolate someone who was weak. Here, in a well-resourced religious house, a sick member of the community could sometimes be moved into a place designed specifically for recovery. The garden matters, but the room matters too. The kitchen matters. The water supply matters. The person carrying the bowl matters. Medicine in this world is not a single object. It is a network of actions. Not all of the monastery's medical world grows from soil. Some of it sits quietly on a page. Parchment, ink, abbreviated words. A reader following lines by limited light. Monastic communities played an important role in preserving and circulating medical knowledge during the early and central Middle Ages. And the 12th and 13th centuries were not intellectually sealed from the wider world. Medical texts associated with Mediterranean centers of learning circulated through translation and copying. Works derived from Greek medicine, along with medical knowledge transmitted through Arabic and Hebrew scholarship, entered Latin collections. English monastic libraries, among others, acquired works concerned with medicinal substances, diagnosis, and therapy. This makes the little room around us part of a much larger geography. A plant may grow a few steps from the infirmary. An ingredient may have traveled hundreds or thousands of miles. An idea may have crossed languages. A manuscript may preserve knowledge copied from another manuscript copied somewhere far away. And still, at the end of that chain, someone has to perform the work. The written recipe cannot smell the plant. It cannot feel whether a mixture is too thick. It cannot judge every variation in a material. That knowledge belongs partly to hands. Books and experience are not necessarily opposites here. The page can preserve, practice can interpret. The garden outside, the stored ingredient, the written instruction, the person in the infirmary, they are connected. Now the working day is ending, doors close, footsteps become less frequent. The garden can no longer be seen clearly from the passage. Its rectangular beds dissolve into darker shapes. The scents remain: damp earth, leaves, stone cooling after the day. Somewhere water continues to move. A lamp burns inside. Not enough to illuminate the whole complex. Only enough to create one small island of light. The infirmary does not stop mattering because night has arrived. Illness does not obey the bell. Someone may wake, someone may need water, someone may sleep badly, but the larger machinery of the monastery has slowed. And the garden, which during daylight appeared to be a collection of useful materials, becomes simply a garden again. Leaves moving in darkness, paths without footsteps, beds of earth, a surrounding wall, and above the wall, the night sky. So why did medieval monasteries grow plants associated with medicine behind their walls? The simplest answer is self-sufficiency, but that answer is incomplete. Monasteries were not perfectly sealed worlds. People crossed their gates. Guests arrived, goods arrived, books arrived, ideas arrived, ingredients arrived. Some useful plants grew locally. Others could be gathered from surrounding landscapes. Some medical substances came through trade. Knowledge itself traveled extraordinary distances. The wall did not create complete isolation. What it could create was continuity, a place where ground could be tended, a place where materials could be stored, a place where books could remain available, a place where water, food, labor, and shelter could be organized, and in many communities, a place where someone who became sick could be removed from ordinary demands and cared for differently. The medicinal garden was not a medieval pharmaceutical factory. It was one component in an ecosystem of care. That distinction matters, because the remarkable part of this story is not the existence of hidden cures. It is that centuries before modern hospitals and laboratories, communities were already organizing space, labor, diet, written knowledge, material resources, and human attention around the difficult problem of sickness. Their explanations of disease could be wrong. Their remedies could fail. Some treatments could cause harm. Yet the impulse to observe, preserve, prepare, feed, shelter, and care is immediately recognizable. The night grows colder. The last lamp in the corridor has been lowered. Inside the infirmary, someone sleeps. On a shelf, dried material waits in darkness. The mortar is clean. The basket is empty. Outside, moisture gathers on leaves. Nothing in the garden moves except what the faint wind touches. For several hours there is no harvesting, no grinding, no reading, no preparation, only stored material, stored knowledge, and sleeping bodies. Then, very slowly, the wall changes color. Black becomes gray. The outline of the garden returns. A path appears. Then another. The rectangular beds emerge from dark. Leaves regain their shape. Stone becomes stone again. Somewhere, a door opens. Morning has begun. In daylight, there is nothing secret here. That may be the best way to leave it. The plants are ordinary plants. The wall is an ordinary wall. The people moving between the buildings are doing ordinary work. And together they form something more complicated than the image of a medieval herb garden suggests. A system for making care possible. The garden supplies only part of it. There are books, trade, food, water, labor, shelter, observation, theory, faith, routine, and human attention. The medieval monastery could not defeat illness. Neither could its garden. But within these walls, People attempted to make sickness manageable. One bed of earth, one stored ingredient, one written recipe, one quiet room, one person caring for another. Morning light reaches farther across the garden. The night has ended. The gate will eventually open. The road outside will become noisy again. But for another moment, stay here, among the stone paths, the damp earth, and the leaves moving gently in the morning air. A garden made remarkable not by fantasy, but by the ordinary work organized around it.